Share screen.
We are streaming on Facebook.
We are. Time to share your screen. I forgot that part.
Right.
We are also going live. Look, it's been a week since I've done this. I've forgotten what I'm doing. We need Bill back.
Okay.
Oh, I need to mute my... Good afternoon, everybody who is joining. Just give us a couple of minutes, just a couple of minutes before 4, so we'll just give people a few minutes to dial in. So if you see Chris and I just sitting here or moving around, or even chatting backwards and forwards, don't worry, we know you're here. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes. Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so let's get started. Welcome everyone. It's the weekly Wednesday 4 p.m. webinar series with Chris Carlsson, who is going to be speaking about the COVID-19 SBA updates and the latest things that are happening in terms of SBA loans and loan forgiveness, etc. My name's Claire, as I said, and I'm actually a SCORE mentor, and I just help Chris on this webinar to kind of field the questions and answers and try and keep them organized a little bit and summarize any of them that may be similar. We do encourage you to put in your questions to Chris, and we'll do our best to get to everything. For those of you who've been here, and you've heard me say this so many times, but for those of you who are new, please use the Q&A function, because that really helps us to make sure we get to all the questions. If you put them in the chat function, we may not see them. So try and use the Q&A function. So with that being said, I am going to pass this over to Chris and let him get started. Thanks, Chris.
Yes, thank you, and welcome everybody to our Wednesday afternoon session, and go through what's new in the world of SBA and EIDL and PPP. As you can see on the screens, I was going to do just kind of prepare to be forgiven thing today, and earlier I was going to do a walkthrough of the spreadsheet and the worksheets, and then we started hearing that SBA was going to come out with a new application that would change things around. So it would be an exercise in futility, and as it turns out, it would have been half an exercise in futility. And we're going to look at that, and I'm going to start walking through a little bit on it, but then there's going to have to be changes made to any worksheet that we do to accommodate the easy form that they now have actually published from the SBA. They have an easy form, and there are some things that needs to be done to qualify to use the easy form. Another big news is that EIDL is back open for small business, and we will talk a little bit about that. And that is a big news. And that's a great thing, more money. And let's do a little bit of diving into that. We're going to do a little bit of recap on the PPP also. So EIDL is back. It was for weeks, it was down to everybody but agricultural business. It's back for everybody. And for a lot of people, what it also has been, what I've found out was that it has broken out a lot of approval of things that have been in the pipeline. I've heard a lot of people actually got the money now. And it's big bucks. For many people, the EIDL has been more money than the PPP was. Now, of course, the EIDL is not forgivable at this point. We don't know what's going to happen. There are no promises, etc., etc. And at this point, it is a 30-year loan at 3.75%. There is no prepayment penalty. And I think it's now becoming clear the things, the framework around the EIDL. Collateral, it is collateralized if you take more than 25 grand. Then it is collateralized. Personal guarantees is over 200,000. And that, I think, was a change, and that's a great change. It makes a huge difference for those of us who are incorporated, LLCs, etc. Not to have to do a personal guarantee if it's under 200,000. For those of us who are sole proprietors, it doesn't make a difference. If it's collateralized as a sole proprietor, it's collateralized with what you have as a sole proprietor. But I think it's still a great loan. And I've had some conversation within some organizations this last week and with some SCORE members as to should we take this, should we not take it? And I would almost always say, well, if you don't mind collateralization over 25 grand, which you have to do on most loans, then if you need the money, you need the money. And number two, if you think you might need the money, it might be a good idea to actually take the money, keep the flexibility in what you have. And if you at one point discover that, oh, things went how I wanted it to go, I don't need it, then give it back. There is no prepayment penalties. And another thing about the 25 grand collateral, it's strange the way you apply for this loan. You go in and they offer to you, here, you can have $55,000 or $35,000 or something. Or let's say an example of $28,000. So they say, okay, so somebody goes in, you click through, you go through all of it. And then after you commit to the dollars, you find out that, wow, wait a minute, over 25,000 is collateralized, and I could have asked to send me less money. So if it's $28,000, I'd rather take 25 and not collateralize. There is a backup solution to that. If you did that, they cannot change it once you commit to the number. But what you can do is when you get the you get the money, they dump it into your bank account, you can then call them and get the specifics. But this is what I call them for one organization. And this is what I heard was that, okay, take the money, then write the check back to this specific address, say the specific things, and we take it back, and you don't have, within the time limit to get collateralized filed, then you don't have to do it. So there is still a backup to do that. Having said all that, to go back, if you need the money, you need the money. It's not a bad loan. There are other SBA loans out there now for other things that are in the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range in terms of percentage. And it is a 30-year loan, so there's a long time to pay back. And this is directly with the SBA. You go on the line on there, and this is the link. PPP, it's still available. There is still money there. There is now about 4.6 million or so small companies who have gotten PPP loan. We got in New Jersey, I think 16 billion, which is a big number. And that is more than our population share. So we picked up a lot. Companies here did a good job. So the PPP is still available to 6/30/20. They think that it might be after that, but there might be changes to the structure. So good friends, don't let this get away. So don't make them lose out. If you have a friend that hasn't done it, remember, this is forgivable. Tell a friend to PPP. Then there are no personal guarantees. There's no collateral. There's personal recourse only if you misuse a lie. And there is forgiveness. And now with a 24-week thing, it's hard not to get it forgiven. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that again. Then again, sole proprietors. Now it's been kind of confirmed, and has been confirmed, that with 24 weeks for forgiveness, the cap for sole proprietors went up to the 20,000 something, which is the max amount that you really could get in a loan for sole proprietor. And now that gets all automatically forgiven over 24 weeks. You don't have to do anything else. But once you do the 24 weeks, your calculation, your forgiveness is that number. Now, quickly go through the changes to the PPP forgiveness, what happened there. So we went from 8 weeks to actually spend the money on the eligible expenses, to a choice of 8 weeks or 24 weeks. And it makes a huge difference, because at 24 weeks, most companies I've seen, and the ones where I've helped setting up the calculations, means that without doing anything extra, without kind of running the business as it is, there is enough payroll being spent in 24 weeks to actually get the full forgiveness. Especially when the 75% of forgiveness went to 25% of the forgiveness had to be payroll, that went to 60%, and no cliff makes it even easier. That means that the eligible other expenses has to be less than 66% of payroll. But again, payroll for 24 weeks should do the tricks. Now, if your approval was June 5th or later, then your payback for what's not forgiven is 5 years. If it was before that, then it's up to the bank if they're going to grant you any longer than 2 years. And the guess is that not many banks are really going to do that. And 6/5, what that means is the date when the bank got your loan number. And which means that you don't know. If you were around that date, you don't know if it was 6/5 or not. So you have to ask the bank, actually, when did you get the loan number? And they should know, should be able to tell you, maybe. Hopefully, there's not too many writing there. On the other hand, 24 weeks, I would say you should work towards getting that forgiveness and not have to worry about paying it back. Now, again, I can't emphasize this enough. To get the forgiveness, not to have to pay it back, there is an application. And I was saying, when I wrote this yesterday, we haven't gotten it yet. So I said, may get simpler. Now, it's now simpler. The 11-page form has gotten to like 2.5 pages. So it's much simpler, not as simple as that sounds, because when you actually read it, there's things you have to do to be able to certify. However, it is in a form, you got to get it, you got to apply to be forgiven. And it's a while from now, so don't forget. If you qualify for the easy form, then you can do the easy form. If not, you're still stuck with all this time, reference period, covered period, everybody has to do. You got to get that done because that's the 24-week period, that's the covered period. You got to calculate what your payroll is. Then, if you do the easy, some of this has changed here. The most important now, it looks like from a quick reading of it, got it today, and the most important outside of the covered period looks to be the first quarter this year. If you do nothing else with your payroll company, get no other reports, get those reports from 1/1 to 3/31. Ring the bells, do what you have to do, get those reports, because without that report, you can't fill in the boxes to allow you to do the easy form. And if you do the long form, that's a lot more work to that. So here are the boxes for, of course, a government form. It looks the way it does, but this is, they say here, can I show? No, wrong one. So it's, yeah, if you can check at least one of these boxes above here, one of these boxes, then you can do the easy form. And if you read this, we're going to send it out. We're going to send out, well, I send it out to most people this morning. And this has to do with certifying, looking at your payroll for covered period compared to first quarter, and saying that you don't have decreased the payroll, for decreased the pay rate for anybody, etc. Now, I'm going to go through and read this carefully, and I'm also going to follow my CPA friends that are really into this and see what their take is on all this stuff. You really have to look at the details of this stuff to kind of ferret out what it is that it really says and what you really have to do. That will be done in the next couple of days. So this is in the instruction to the application. The application itself, page 1, was simplified from the previous one. Right here, there is not the adjustment for the full-time equivalents that we had in the other one. And there is not the adjustment for the reduction of pay rate for people in this. We just have to certify that it wasn't there. And in many cases, I would say, people I've seen, talked to, etc., most people, when this all happened, didn't reduce pay for people, they laid off people. So I think that most people won't have that payroll rate issue. But this is now simpler. And you'll be looking at the payroll cost, the same thing as before. Remember, the gross payroll, local and state payroll taxes, healthcare cost paid by the company, and retirement contribution paid by the company. Those added up, that's the payroll cost. And then you have the business mortgage and interest payment, rent and lease payments, and utility payments. That added up, and that becomes the first potential forgiveness amount. Then you have the actual loan amount, and then you have the payroll cost divided by 0.6 to get that gross amount from your payroll for the 24 weeks. And the least of that becomes the forgiven amount. And I'm going to tell you that I would be surprised if there's a lot of people who can't get to the total 100% forgiveness. I would guess that most people can get there. Now, here. I know this is small and all that kind of stuff, but we're going to send it out. What they did, instead of making calculations and make it proportional and all those kind of things, they took a lot of that on the old application, the big one, and put it into certifications. I'm certifying that I haven't reduced the pay for anybody, etc., etc. And if you certify that, then it's a lot easier. And most people can certify that. And it's not only reducing pay, remember, it's reducing by more than 25%. And it's pay rate. All right. Claire, do we have any questions?
We do. So I'm just going to take them in order because I don't think any of them right now are specific to this. So if I already, one from Phil is, if I already had a PPP loan, but I just received approval for EIDL loan, would this affect my PPP in any way?
If you received your EIDL, the loan at this point, then you probably already received the grant that preceded it. And it's the grant that preceded it that affects the forgiveness amount of the PPP. So if we after 24 weeks calculate your forgiveness to $30,000 and your grant originally from EIDL was $5,000. Well, how that works is that you keep the grant money of $5,000, but it gets deducted from the $30,000 forgiveness. So together they are $30,000. So yes, it affects it in that way. No other way does it affect it.
Okay. Then there was, this is from Deborah. I just logged in to fill the EIDL application. Nowhere did it ask how much of a loan I'm applying for, just a box to check if I'm interested in the 10,000 advance. Am I missing something?
Yeah, isn't that fantastic? You're applying for a loan and you can't say how much you're applying for. I remember back a couple of months ago when we first did it in a couple of operations that I'm involved in, and it was hair-raising. You apply for something, you don't know what you're applying for, and you feel like you're missing something, that this can't be right. What I would say, what has happened in almost every case I've heard, is that the SBA does go through and they determine how much money you're eligible to borrow. And it's almost always more than what you think it's going to be. They are basing it somewhat on employees and those kind of things. I'm not sure what they're basing it on. In most cases, I have seen the EIDL be higher than the PPP. So what you're going to find out is that eventually they're going to come and say, hey, you've been approved for X. And then you're going to go through the process of saying, do you want this amount or do you want something smaller? And that's the whole discussion we had in the beginning about the $25,000 collateralization. And if you're a bigger company, you get over $200,000, then there's a personal guarantee involved. So if they say you're eligible for $210,000 and you're an LLC or an S Corp or something, I think I would go to $200,000 and not do the personal guarantee.
Okay. For the EIDL, is this personal collateral or business collateral for the over 25,000?
Presuming that the question emanates because you have an LLC or an S Corp, you're incorporated. If you do, then the collateralization is with the company, not you personally.
Okay. And so if you're an LLC, you're still protected, right? Even though the collateral is with the business, because you're protected by the corporate umbrella or the LLC umbrella?
You are protected by the corporate umbrella unless, of course, you sign a personal guarantee.
Okay. And that wasn't a question, but there would never be an instance where the EIDL would ask for a personal guarantee, would there?
Over 200,000, yes.
They would, okay.
Yeah.
Then we have a question from Deanna. In an earlier PPP provision, you could only use 2 months rent, for example, towards forgiveness, but now can you use it for longer than the 2-month rent period?
Well, the 2-month rent was for 8 weeks. That was the provision. So now you have a choice to either do 8 weeks or 24 weeks, and everything follows the number of weeks that you're doing it for. It's either 8 or 24. If you do it for 24, then yes, you can use the rent that you have in those 24 weeks, give or take 6 months. So with the caveat that that can't go over the 60% of total forgiveness or 66% of the payroll.
Okay. Then we have this. This is a good question. I reduced the hours on several employees and furloughed them for a period of time. So I did reduce their salary by 25%. Their hourly rate was not reduced. However, the number of hours they worked was reduced.
Yes. I think I followed the question in terms of, that's an important question now with the new easy form. Because there, one of the questions you have there, did you reduce anybody's pay rate by more than 25%? So that's important there. I don't know. I have to look at the details of the new easy form to see what the full-time equivalent type thing is there. I saw that they were looking at and talking about different concepts in terms of hours. So I don't know yet. I am going to find out in the next day or so exactly what that means. If you don't qualify for the easy form, yes, then it's the full-time equivalent calculation that would guide that.
Okay. Do we enter the EIDL number on this new easy form?
Yes. I believe so. EIDL advance amount and EIDL application number, yes.
Okay. Does the 24-week period start on the day you receive the PPP funds, which will not be until sometime in the future? Then you need to wait until after the 24 period week period to make the forgiveness application?
That is correct. So presuming that you choose to do the 24-week period. So it's either 24 weeks or 12/31 when it ends. So anybody who's getting money in June, it's going to be 24 weeks. And let's not talk about payroll for a second. Let's talk about everything else. Everything else but payroll, all the other eligible expenses, rent, business interest, and utilities are as of the funding day for 24 weeks. Now, for payroll, you have a choice to do the day of funding or to do the day the next payroll period starts for you. And that is to allow you to make it easier to run your payroll reports and getting it all aligned to your payroll reporting structure, because you're so dependent on the payroll reporting here.
I wonder if the payroll companies are going to have to do something to, this isn't a question, but it's the thought I had. The payroll companies are probably all scrambling around to create the necessary reports now to make it easy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
They are. They've
Yeah.
been scrambling a lot. Where I'm involved, we have talked to 3 different ones, and they all have had some issues producing the reports correctly. We have had to do some manipulation ourselves. They're getting better. They're getting there. And today they were thrown a curve for the easy form.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, but they're going to get there, because you know what? They have to get there because their customers are going to depend on them to be able to produce this. And I'm sure they are. It will happen.
I think probably a word of advice would be, if you're, when you pull the reports from your payroll company, double check them. My latest phrase at the moment is sanity check them, but, and I seem to be using that a lot, but I mean, I don't know, what do you think, Chris, but don't assume that the reports the payroll company are giving you are correct. You should probably validate them.
Yes, you should, because I would say what I've seen, I thought it would be more standardized than what it is. But what we've seen is that they become non-standard, they are customized reports, and there could be mistakes in them. So when you look, if you look for your covered period, make sure that all your employees are included in that report so that you get credit for all the payroll that you're paying out in the 24-week period.
Right. We have some more questions. Do you want to just go a little bit further in the presentation and we'll take some more? Okay.
Let's do that. And again, I am going to adjust the worksheet for the easy form and send it out. And I would say, go over this with your CPA bookkeeper and get the payroll reports. There are 3 things in the forgiveness thing that's important now, is that get your bookkeeper familiar with what they're going to need to do. You're going to need the help of a bookkeeper or a bookkeeper type. And you're going to need the help of the payroll company. So get all that kind of set up and the payroll reports. And this we can jump over at this point. We can jump over this. Now, what I wanted to do at this point was to start going through what should we start looking at to make sure that we are on track. You don't want to come down to the last minute and find that you need to scramble. So here is the front kind of page of the worksheet. And I just, in this case, I just took numbers. Last week I had an actual where I had to black everything out, etc. So I'm not doing that. It's too difficult to see. So here it comes. In this particular case, I just said that there was a funding on 4/23. So with a 24-week period, you have a covered period goes from 4/23 to 10/7. This is automatic when you use this worksheet. And again, I'm sending out the new one to you. Then you have an alternate period, and that's the one I was talking about. So in this case, we got a funding on 4/23. The next payroll period starts on 4/27. And to make it easier so we don't have to prorate our first and last payrolls, we just converted to the alternate, which started 427 and then goes to 1011. The amount that we got, I'm making this up, $205,000, I'm not doing real numbers, and got $10,000 of EIDL advance. So then starting to track our expenses. And why do we do that? I'm coming to that. That is to kind of know a little bit easier where we are, to see out in the future a little bit. So here started to, oh, sorry. So we said in PayNet, that is actually one of our payroll companies. So expense was incurred in, I think this is week, it says, enter the date expenses curve, which is the first day it became expense, okay. So 426, and then we actually paid it on 5/1. And then the number, let's say, was $6,500 for that payroll. And then we had a health insurance with CalChoice for $2,500. And for the payroll, we had state and local taxes of $260. And then we go down and we do principal for retirement planning. And then we have a loan where we paid interest of $3,600 for a loan that we had prior to 2015, and we paid rent of $15,000. And we do that on all of them, and we have now come to this week. So we have done all this keeping track of the expenses, and it's not that much to keep track of, really. So what happens here, you go down, and eventually we get to the bottom. And here, so, and we have, there's one person here who makes more than $100,000 a year, and now the cap is at $46,154, and he is going to, he is now $5,500 over the cap. So that is from the $45,000 in payroll, you got to deduct that out. So at this point, this operation has, let's say, has $52,000 in payroll related expenses. That's the $40,000, it's the $5,000, it's the $1,800, it's the $5,400. And that's 52. And in other eligible expenses, there have been 39. And that's 43% of it. It's a max 40% of the total forgiveness that is now calculated as 91,000. Now, what we do here is to say, okay, we're 7 weeks into it. So we're going to try to project out. Where are we? So if we do the same thing for the next 17 weeks, we're going to end up at $179,000 of payroll. And we're going to end up at $135,000 of other eligible. And the loan was $205. So if I take the loan of $205 minus the $179,000 in payroll, I have another $26,000 of other eligible I need to fill in the gap. That's the projected. Well, I'm going to have $135,000 if I continue the way I am. So I easily have that. And if I only do 26, that's only 14% of the 40 max. So I'm good. I'm going to get a 100% forgiveness. That's what this calculation will do. Then we have the worksheet that is for the covered period. And this is where we should start making sure we have a payroll company set up so they can download our 24-week payroll. Start the conversation. And then we have the important one that we already should be getting. That's the first quarter to be dumped in here. Now, once we have established what the new procedures are, what the new requirements are in the easy form, I'm going to redo this, and then I'm actually going to take a session and just go through, dump payroll in, and those kind of things. I might have to have our controller do it because she's better at it, but that's what we're going to do. So I would recommend to everybody that do this very first one, expense tracker, because that will, at the bottom, in this version that doesn't exist in the previous, because at the bottom here, you project out, based on you're going to do the same things. You can project out if you're going to get full forgiveness or not, and see what it is that you have to do. So, should we go back and see if there are other questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions, so I'm just going to go from list down because none of them seem to be similar. So, with an EIDL loan, is the advance money actually a grant which doesn't have to be paid back?
Yes. Well, hold on. Back up a little bit. It depends. If you got the very first one dumped in to your bank account, that was the $1,000 per employee up to 10,000, answer is yes. If you're one of them who got the next question, and some did, not everybody, that do you want another $15,000 in advance because we're taking a long time? Then that is not. Then that $15,000 will get deducted out of your eventual loan. But if it's the first, which is 90% of the cases, yes.
Okay. And then this is similar. I received a grant from the SBA. The grant is the EIDL minus 30. Do I need to pay that back?
The EIDL minus what?
It says EIDL, dash 30, I think is what it says.
Dash 30, I'm guessing, would be for the 30 years, I think.
Yeah, that would...
Do I need to? Yes. Now, the grant, if it says grant, no. The actual loan will say loan, and you will know it, because there's going to be loan paperwork to be signed. There is like no way you can't know what it is that you're doing.
Okay. Then I was denied the EIDL loan, but the advance was deposited. They said I didn't prove that I had an economic need for it. My business has been closed for 3 months. The original loan was filed only after 2 weeks of being closed. I want to appeal it. Are there cases where the appeal works?
Now, let's see here. I'm trying to picture. They are saying that you didn't need it. The only thing I can imagine that they're really talking about is that you didn't certify that you needed it.
They didn't prove
that it's needed.
She didn't prove that there was it was said that she didn't prove there was an economic need for it.
I'm looking at it now to prove an economic need for it. I've gone through that application a couple of times, and I'm wondering if it is because you didn't certify that you had the need for it. maybe separately, I can't today, but tomorrow, maybe if this person could email me, maybe we can take a look at it and see what it is.
Deanna, I'm going to put Chris's email address in the answer box so you have it and you can email him. Okay, then we have another question. I received the EIDL grant and recently received the info for an EIDL loan and logged into my portal and did as instructed and received a decline. Now I'm getting information from the SBA to finish the loan info and it does not allow me to go any further in the portal. I've emailed the SBA, given email, but can't get an answer. Where do I go from here? Also, if you are declined, is the $10,000 grant forgiven?
Yes, the grant is irrespective of everything else that happens after that. So here, where I have had luck is actually calling that number, the 800 number. In the beginning of this, you couldn't get through anywhere with the SBA on this. I got through twice fairly quickly in the last week on a couple of things, and they were good. They knew what they were talking about and they gave the answers. So I would say call that 800 number. Because what is being said here doesn't make sense.
Okay. If I got an EIDL loan over 25,000 and use my company's collateral, do I have to inform the SBA if I sell one of my listed collateral items, such as a TP or stove? Do I need to give them a list with values of items to get collateral?
Answer to the last question is no, you don't. I've been involved in getting one that was over $500,000 and we didn't give them anything. They asked me to file a UCC directly with the state that covered every asset that you possibly could think of, but we didn't give them anything with values or anything. And I believe that I remember reading that the typical language that you have in a loan, which is that you can't sell it unless it's in the ordinary course of business. And ordinary course of business is a wide term, and this is a 30-year loan. I would not do extraordinary things for at least a while. But if the TP or stove is part of regular business, it's inventory, or that you regularly buy and sell these things, then there's nothing preventing you from buying and selling them.
And I think as well, I mean, if you can prove that it's for legitimate business reasons, that, you know, you're selling something and it's to improve the quality of the business. Yeah. You would think that that would be relevant if there was an audit.
Yes. If you get pick the number, if you get a $500,000 loan and you have assets for $1 million and you sell all the assets, that's a problem. If you get a $500,000 loan and you're selling a $5,000 asset and it's in somewhat ordinary course of business, it happens because you may be new or you don't need it anymore, etc. Then it's not a problem. If you have a $20,000 loan and selling a $1,000 asset, probably not a big deal. Typically in loans, there are these provisions in almost every loan that I've ever done. And you go through business and you do what you do. The times that I have had an issue is that when you have loans that are tied to like vehicles where they have the titles and those kind of things, then you have the real tie-up. Otherwise, you kind of be reasonable about things, I would say. And if it's a regular course of business, to me, there's no question you can do that, yes.
Okay, then we have and don't worry, Deanna, questions are good. In prior weeks, I thought we were told not to add EIDL advance in PPP forgiveness form, but now it's on there. Are we entering it because it's the easy form?
Two different things. I get the question, yes, and it's confusing. I understand that. So there are two things. We're entering it in the form. That we do. They're asking us to do it, we should do it. If you don't, the thing isn't going to be approved. Now, when you go through, let's see if I can find the form. I'm not good at finding the right things here, but let's see here. I think it might be here. Here's the form. So when you go through here and actually put the numbers in, and you get down to line 8, forgiveness amount, do not deduct your EIDL grant from that. Because if you do, the SBA may do it again, because how this works, they say it's going to work. How this works is that this amount on line 8, SBA will then take that amount and deduct the EIDL grant from that themselves. So that's how that will work. So you put it in, but you don't deduct it from the number.
Okay. If all the money I received from the PPP loan is used up by my payroll in 10 weeks, can I apply for forgiveness early, still using 24 weeks?
No, because some of the numbers that you need to do for the calculations don't work unless you then just do it for 8 weeks, and then you do everything tied to 8 weeks. If you say I'm done after 10 weeks, then the bars is still such that you got to look at the 24-week period to see and report whether you had decreases in people and pay rates. So no, it doesn't work that way.
Okay. Does the owner's salary get added into the covered period, or is this a separate on the form?
It's separate on the form. There is a place on the form in the way that you do this. In the form, it's separated. It is in the full form. I have to look now when you ask the question in the easy form. It has to be, because what they're saying, yes, it's a separate line item.
Okay. Does the collateral amount have to match the amount of the EIDL loan over 25,000? If you were offered 145,000, do you have to have, I guess, the collateral for 100?
No, you don't. And SBA typically doesn't work that way. If you have regular SBA loan, the bank that does the loan will go through and do those calculations to see if the loan is collateralized. It's not that way here. They don't know. They have no information of your actual asset values or anything. You haven't given them an appraisal. You haven't done anything. So no, there is no bearing on that. They just want to have a dip on your assets in case you don't pay them back.
Does the SBA Treasury 310- miscellaneous need to be paid back?
I don't know. I'm not good at the actual regulations in there. So if the questioner could actually tell me what's that about. I don't do well with that stuff. I'm not a lawyer. I'm more practical.
Okay. So I would say I'm going to give your email address and maybe they can email you.
Yeah. Yes.
Separately. Okay.
Yeah.
Can a sole proprietor LLC without employees, payroll, or mortgage utilities get forgiveness? If so, would a Schedule C for 2019 suffice for forgiveness?
You have two issues. First, the answer to the question is yes. You have forgiveness. You have automatic forgiveness. You used your Schedule C for 2019 to actually get the PPP. So the number is established 2.5 months for it. And now with the 24 weeks, they have said, we're not in 8 weeks anymore, we're in 24 weeks. So your amount for forgiveness is capped at $20,000, which is the same as your $100,000 caps. It's what your maximum PPP loan was. So there is an automatic, and that will be in the form when you're applying. So yes, that's what it is, but you don't have to do anything with that. That will be there.
Okay. I received an email on 5/10 that my SBA loan was ready for the next step. I never did anything with it. At this point, can I just follow it through and get the grant?
I don't think so, but in all of this, they say that you had 30 days to do it when they actually do it. And obviously 5/10 is more than 30 days ago. But did they actually follow through in their system to tag something to those 30 days? I don't know. It could very well, but it didn't. So I would just go in and try. Worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't work. Nobody's going to come and haul you off in handcuffs or anything. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then I would try again. I would make a new application if you want the loan.
Okay. Given so many applications for PPP and EIDL nowadays, I'm wondering how likely I will get an SBA loan for my new business that's less than 3 months old.
Less than 3 months old means that it did not exist on 2/15, so it doesn't qualify.
And then Lois was just asking for clarification on what a UCC is.
A Universal Commercial Code, and it's loosely translated as a lien on your assets. And it's a form that's filed with the state that says that I am a creditor and you, the company, you're the debtor, and you owe me X number of dollars, and as security for that, I have these assets listed here. That's my security, and it is based on chronological order. It's chronological order, which means that if you have a UCC, and it's a good question, it's an important question, we haven't covered it. If you have a UCC on your assets and you now go out and ask for another loan and they want to be first, they're not first. They're now after that one, and that could present the problem. But that's nothing different than any other loan that you would have. All loans that have security work that same way. This is nothing unusual.
Sorry, I had you muted. Sorry, one of my kids was walking in to ask me a question. Sorry about that, everyone. So Deanna, in answer to your question, yes, the webinars are available online. So I think if you register in the Zoom registration, then you can have access to it on demand from Zoom. We also put them on our Facebook Live, and we also put them on our YouTube channel. So you do have access to all of them. And I'm happy that you're returning to work. That's great for you. And then one other question is, once I received my PPP loan, I rehired my wage employees. However, I always had salaried employees. Can I still elect an alternative payroll period?
Yes, you can elect the beginning of the payroll period, the next payroll period as the alternative period, whenever the beginning of that payroll period is. So yes, if the previous was monthly salaried, then and they're now hourly weekly, then it's the beginning of that hourly weekly that counts. It's the one that you actually have now at the period in question.
Okay. And that was the last question that we have in there so far. So if anybody has any more questions, feel free to put them in. And while we are rolling up at 5 o'clock as well, though. So
We are.
yeah, so perhaps that was good timing. Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just look out for what we are sending out on the updated EC form and the new worksheet as to what that is. And once we have digested what they're really saying in that form for what we need to do. So otherwise, again, important, look out, actually do, when you get there, do the application, get with your payroll company, get with your bookkeeper.
Okay, so on that note, as it is heading up to 5 o'clock, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining. Thanks, Chris, again for such valuable information.
My pleasure.
I know it's really appreciated by everybody. We keep getting comments on how great the information has been, so thank you. Just a reminder to all that, you know, we're here every Wednesday at 4. Chris will have updates for us, and we'll keep doing this while there are still updates to be coming out from the SBA. We also have our Friday webinar series that are available, and they're at 11 a.m. on Fridays. And this week we have Jeremy Skillings talking about how Google My Business works. So if you're interested in getting your business up and running and have all the current information on Google My Business, which is becoming a very key way people can find you, then dial into that. Also, that will be available on our YouTube channel and Facebook Live as well. So if you aren't available Friday at 11, you can still access it. And then we have a number of speakers coming up over the next few weeks, which we're going to publicize too. Lois, the quick question about the YouTube channel, it's available. It'll come out in the email from this, that comes out from Zoom after this meeting within the next 24 hours, but it's Score Monmouth is the name of the channel. I think if you Google it, you'll find it, but I'll make sure it's in the email that comes out. Remember, we always provide free mentoring. You can find a mentor on our website at monmouth.score.org. And so feel free to reach out to us at any time. Mentoring is what we do for all small businesses. And we have a whole wealth of a whole host of mentors with a wealth of information. So don't hesitate to request one if you do want some one-on-one mentoring for your business. And on that note, I think that's it. We will see some of you on Friday. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Chris, thank you so much. And everybody,
thank you. Have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.